Hi, everybody. Good morning from Short Hair Saturday. I didn't foof it today. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about integrity, spiritual integrity, or integrity in spiritual community. I think it's a great topic to bring up now and then because it sort of gives us a check and balance of what's going on in life. And I wanted to make sure that I explained what all of that means as far as what we would consider the definition of it is and how we can work with it and so on. Because we have the propensity in our lives to also fall into our shadow category at times, which is the opposing side of who we are, what we would like to be, or who we would like to be. It's easy for us to find ourselves in a conundrum when it comes to that. And so it is something we have to keep in check. And we have to realize that some of the things that we say and believe about others is actually more about things we need to work on. I've found this to be so true over and over again. And it's just a good reminder. And I think I'm going to come back and replay this whenever I'm feeling that way. So anyway, thanks for being here. And thanks for watching. I thought about this long and hard. Last night in the middle of the night, I get these ideas and it's awful because I just want to get up and do it then. But, it's not always a prime time to do that. So I wrote down a few notes today, and I'm hoping that I can at least give a little bit of a sketch of what I'm talking about, and also open it up to any questions or any comments that anybody has about it or surrounding it or working with it. And maybe we can even do a panel on it later on. That would be wonderful. I do know that Gerald and Deb Hanvey, Purple Elephant, have done work with spiritual ethics. And it's a little bit ethics. One of the key components of ethics is integrity. And so integrity is the state of being undivided together with the quality of brutal self-honesty. In other words, we don't need to be critical of ourselves, but we do have to be honest with ourselves that we may not be projecting what we would like to be projecting. People may not be receiving our message, or we may not be living in compliance with what it is that we would like to think we're living in. It demands a depth of self-awareness that some of us don't always have. And that's not a criticism. It's easier to see other people's faults, just like it's easier to read other people's cards than it is our own. And an uncompromising willingness to be our authentic selves. And so being authentic means you walk your talk, you do what you need to do with it, and you walk in integrity and wisdom, and yet not ego materialism. Ego is fine. It's when it changes into ego materialism that it becomes an issue, especially in spiritual communities. We've seen that with people like, and again, they're not spiritual. These are more religious folks I'm bringing up, but I've seen it done with people like Jim Jones, the Hale-Bopp Comet guy, David Koresh. All those are religious examples, but there are some spiritual examples as well. And the other day when we were talking about the power of awareness with the Wayne Dyer material, actually somebody brought up that they had read Wayne Dyer and they did not feel that he was actually spiritually integral. And he didn't have the integrity that this person probably considered he should have. We're all very, very important components of the bigger component. And everybody has their beliefs and opinions, and everybody's entitled to them. And we shouldn't shun other people because they don't agree with what we agree with. Whereas I know politically that is almost verboten, but anyway. We have to also, the first step for us is to recognize that we are not always honest. We may not be honest with ourselves. We may not be honest with others. We may feel the need to hide parts of ourselves that we feel are unflattering. And we also have a concern that what we are dealing with is at times unknown to us, such as we're becoming aware of our spiritual gifts, and yet at the same time we don't trust ourselves. We don't have, and all you need to do to cover that issue is to say, it's all a work in progress. I don't know everything. And I'm always willing to learn and willing to grow. And if you sincerely mean that, then there's nothing wrong with putting yourself out there and letting people know that you're working on whatever it is that you're working on with intention and using discernment and figuring out exactly how you feel about that idea. You need to have the courage also to live your beliefs in the face of opposition, because there will be people that will oppose you. You don't want to run out there maybe and scream it out what it is you believe in or what you do, because you feel that may create some kind of an issue with friends, family, people that knew you from other places, let's say. But at the same time, if you really do believe in your spiritual path and you really do believe that what you're doing is important to you, why should you hide it? What is the purpose? Is it fear or is it retribution? Examine that idea. And I know there are a lot of Christians out there and other religious people who will do that. And unfortunately, you've got the other side of that, even in spirituality and in religion, where people will say and not do. They don't walk their talk. In other words, they're judgmental, they're angry, their ideas are far-fetched, and they put themselves out there as being holier than thou. Nobody is better than anybody else, ever. And if the best way you can think about it is you have this person buried next to this person in the ground. They're equal. This person may have been a pauper. This person may have been a billionaire. What difference does it make now? A spiritual ego is a mind that's infused with spiritual ideas and beliefs. And of course, we have to live in this 3D world. So because we do, we have to balance this all the time. This is not easy for us. It really isn't. We get in the car, someone cuts us off. We find we resent something that we shouldn't be resenting because it doesn't serve us any purpose, or we're judging somebody that may be different than ourselves. And even though we don't say it, it exists somewhere. It exists in the mind. It exists in the heart. It's the idea and the identity of yourself as being spiritually evolved. If you have a belief system and you've been working on it for a heck of a long time, or even a very short time, you need to remember that you are evolving and will be evolving until the moment you take your last breath, because there is no tier that says you've reached the pinnacle. Not really. I mean, there are a lot of people that have grown more exponentially in their spiritual growth, but if you think about the idea of the Christ itself, and I'm not even talking about the fact that we want to talk about Jesus the man, but the Christ within, the God within. If we talk about that and we aim for that, then that is no judgment, no resentment, no jealousy, etc., etc. The set of beliefs is in a spiritual ego might look more favorable than what you have previously thought yourself to be or believe in. So yes, you might all of a sudden say, gee, I wasn't a very nice person for X amount of years. That's what Daniel Brinkley did in Saved by the Light. He got hit by lightning. He realized he was a real jerk when he was younger. And he woke up and he thought, from his near-death experience, and he thought, this isn't working for me. And I need to change who I am and change how I interact with folks. Sometimes it doesn't have to take something that dramatic to happen for you to feel that way. Other times it does. Sometimes we keep getting messages to do something and we don't do it. And finally, wham, the universe says, stop. do it. So what is the difference between the ego and the spirit? The ego is the controlling voice of your mind that drives you to seek safety, perfection, and the approval of other people. It will keep you and hold you captive. Very important. In contrast, the voice of your spirit is that reassuring voice that insists, urges, and shows you the way to love and the way to be love, and also work from your heart instead of your head. There's nothing wrong with heart over head. We've been told there is. We've been told that it's not a smart idea not to think about what it is that you're going to be doing. The ego dwells in the material realm, in the conscious realm. In doing so, it identifies with the objects, items, relationships, trials, tribulations, and triumphs of the material world. In other words, it dwells on competition, one-upsmanship, being better than the other, working to gain more materials, more friendships, more adoration, let's say, more material possessions, and oh yes, well I did this, and oh well, yes, well I did that. It's overly obsessed with the material world and how good you're doing in it, or how badly somebody else is doing, or how good they're doing and why are they doing so well, but I'm not doing that well. Okay, that's your ego talking. Your ego is saying, I have to be better than them. But you don't. You do not have to be better. The more we become invested in the material world, the less we are invested in the spiritual world. Here's the dilemma. This is that. Spiritual is material, but you have to learn to work within it. Think of it as a squeeze box. Mama's got a squeeze box she wears on her chest, and it's an accordion. Think of it that way. Give and take, give and take, give and take. It creates the most beautiful music. Spiritual materialism is that process by which our ego grasps at whatever accomplishments and progress we have upon the spiritual path. And this denies us. It denies, the very nature denies the self. As soon as you claim it, it isn't yours anymore. Why? Because we aren't doing it. We are the conduit. We are the vessel. We are the ones bringing it through. We are not the oracle. We are not the oracle. When we get excited about something, I will say that there are many of us who, when we get a validation of something that we do in a reading, we go, all right, yay. Well, it isn't as much as I did anything. It's a way of knowing we're receiving the right message. But if we overdo that and start to believe that we are the oracle, then we miss out. We lose. Because Spirit says, don't use me that way. Don't use me that way. So the point is not to one down or denigrate the taste of life in those moments, but rather to point out, while this is a milestone toward your state of enlightenment, if you own it, you lose it, because it's a continuing way of growing. It's not the all be end all. The Tao Te Ching, which is a fabulous book that's out there with some beautiful, beautiful ideas in it, is that which is nameless. And so what it says in there a lot about is how you are simply flowing. It's like you're the leaf on the river. You're flowing down the river. You're going with it this way. You can't change the direction of the river. You can't change even where you're going on it sometimes because the current is really fast. But you can allow yourself to flow along with it. And in flowing along with it, you become the river. You become that which you seek. Spiritual materialism is the ego trying to clutch at that leaf. And we can't do that. And it's a work in progress. It's got nothing to do with I failed once, then I can't do it. It's I failed, but I didn't. I learned. I failed, but I learned. I failed, but I learned. And finally, I learned from my failures. I learned. And I have to let it go. I have to let it go because it isn't going to do me any good to hold on to it. As soon as we cast something into a role or put a label on it, as soon as we name it, we take away all the power and nothing more than an event. It is no longer a revelation, but just a material experience. That is material spiritualism. Materialism is at its peak. When you're materialistic, that which is named is you, and you're the greatest thing that's since sliced bread. And you're so good, and you're so loved, and people are clamoring to get readings from you, or clamoring to get your advice, or clamoring for this, or clamoring for that. And you don't have time to handle all the things you have to handle with them because you're busy. And oh my God, they have to understand. So I'm going to have to charge more. I'm going to have to charge more so that I can spend time with you. And so what happens is people who don't have the money to pay you lose out. They lose. This is something that I personally is one of my beliefs. It doesn't mean you can't make a living or you can't try to be a spiritual person who has a spiritual business and wants to have an energy exchange. My feeling is there's a difference between charging and an energy exchange. When you charge someone, you're thinking of them as a customer. You're thinking of them as a commodity, I guess. Oh yes, you're my customer, and and if you really want to have some time with me, then you can just pay me $300 and I'll talk to you. Otherwise, go down the road. And there is something about the idea that if you get something free in this world, that it's not valuable. And I don't believe that. I think that there are times when somebody can give you something free and it becomes the most valuable thing you've ever seen. It's a nugget. It's a kernel. We don't know the effect that it has, whether that be a smile, whether that be 5 minutes of your time, whether that means reaching out and saying, I know how you feel. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Whatever it is. That's important. Now, I do want to bring in energy exchange just to be fair. When you're asking somebody for some advice or some help, it's a give and take. So, and I'm not denigrating anybody that has a set fee to do anything, believe me. What I am denigrating is people like Stuart Wilde, who was a spiritual teacher in the 90s. I don't even know if he's still around. And if he is, God bless you, Stuart. My friend wanted to go because he did fire walking, and she wanted to go to this wonderful fire walking place and do what you need, learn from him. And it was going to be $5,000 for the fire walking only. And then you had to pay your flight, your this, your that, the other. And she did it. She pretty much took everything out of her savings account and went over and did it. And what happened to her was she learned everything she thought she had to know before she did the fire walking. And she watched people in front of her walk across the very, very hot coals and have no problems with their feet. But she burned her feet and had to go to the emergency room. And the only thing that this person would say was, well, you didn't believe enough. You just didn't believe enough. And that's ego. That's ego. And I don't know. I just have a hard time with it. Everybody can disagree. Every single person doesn't have to agree with what I say. That's one thing about not being somebody's guru or not being somebody's be all and end all, is that I don't have anything on you. In other words, you have your own free will to think about what it is you want. You have your own mind to make up. You have your own reason, your own discernment. So anything that I say may not resonate. And if it doesn't, God bless you. Let me know what does. Because I think that's what it takes to step out of spiritual ego materialism and move into integrity. Yes, we have to operate in our ego in this world. But there's a difference with materialism and spiritual egoism. Spiritual ethics is to incorporate the personal values of integrity, morality, and good quality work. For others, it means treating colleagues in an affectionate and responsible way. For another, it could be about taking part in spiritual practices like prayer, meditation, community work together, or even coming together here, doing readings, talking about topics, being kind to one another, reaching out to other people. Some of spiritual values that we could say are included in these types of things would be altruistic love, loving somebody as a brother or a sister, loving out of your heart, not out of your head. Self-awareness, which is what I brought up in the very beginning. We must be self-aware. We must realize when we've veered from the path. Visioning and authenticity. Certain values act as broad umbrellas that allow for study or sub-values like faith, meditation, positive thinking, and humility. And that's a very important word, humility. It's important to be humble, act humble, and to show your spiritual integrity as you move along in your journey, not judging, not sniping, not alienating. This is why, for me, collaboration is what I wish to practice here on this channel and in other groups that I'm in. Not competition. I'm not in competition with anybody. Nobody. And I am here because I want to be here. I'm here when I can be here because I work, unfortunately, because I'd rather be here. And I'm here because I feel guided to bring to all of you a little more cohesion to your spiritual journey. And finally, you've got to see my brand new hummingbird shirt. Oh my God, I love it. Think about it. Think about your spiritual integrity and your integrity in this spiritual community. Most of you do fine. I haven't got any complaints. It's just a reminder for me as much as for you. Thank you.